welcome to our special Public Works Gang Reduction Committee meeting. I'm Chairman Joe Buscaino. I'll soon be joined by my colleagues, Mr. Price and Mr. Cedillo. Today is Wednesday, June 3rd. Welcome. I would now ask for you to direct your attention to the agenda. And I know the majority of you are here to speak on item number 6. I'm going to wait till I get another member or two before we dive into item number 6. So while we're waiting, we will take item number 1.
Item number 1 is a joint report from the Bureau of Street Services, Bureau of Engineering, and City Administrative Officer relative to taking various actions with respect to street cuts and the city's damage restoration fee.
So this item is one of the 5 street smart items that we'll be discussing today in committee. And as we all know, the City of Los Angeles has the largest local street system in the country. We have the worst pavement condition in the country, with nearly a third of our streets so badly damaged. Cost-effective maintenance techniques like slurry seal and resurfacing can't be deployed. These streets have to be completely reconstructed from the ground on up at a cost of more than $3 billion. We don't have $3 billion, and nothing before this committee today will yield that kind of revenue. But if we want voters to pitch in and agree to pay for improving our streets, we need to show them that we can be trusted to maintain and preserve them as efficiently and cost-effectively as possible. And people don't like seeing their street resurfaced only to have it torn down or torn up a month later by another city department. That's one of my frustrations. Today is about making sure our operations are as efficient as possible and ensure that we as a city stretch every dollar as far as possible. So this one, item number 1, if I can ask you, Mr. Olive, an update on this item. And this is, again, a number of our motions and our efforts to look at our efficiencies and as it relates to this item. Tell us a little bit about the street restoration fee and why we have it and why we may not be collecting enough from the fee.
Okay, good afternoon, Councilman Ron Olive with the Bureau of Street Services, along with
Stacy Sosa of the CAO.
And there's actually 3 other city agencies involved in this report back and report backs to follow. To answer your question, the street damage restoration fee was adopted by the city in 1998, and its really chief objective at that time was to provide an incentive or a disincentive, if you will, for utilities and other agencies from cutting into the streets prematurely, and providing an incentive to coordinate their planned work with the Bureau of Street Services so that, as you say, we don't have cuts in the streets that just get resurfaced. So just a brief history on it. So since 1998, we did have a consultant study quantifying the amount of damage estimated per year that was created from street excavations, and from that, at that time, a number of different city entities took a shot at estimating the amount of excavations that were being made every year, and from that calculated the original fee schedule.
This was back in 96, the last study?
96 was the study, and 98 was the adoption of the first ordinance.
Why did it take 2 years to adopt the ordinance after the study was done?
Well, the study, again, I'm sure there was a number of public hearings at the time. I'm sure there's a lot of, again, with something new as this, and I recall some of them. I wasn't even in street service, but I do remember a number of hearings and a number of utilities and agencies being heard. So a few years later, and as was mentioned in the controller's audit of our street resurfacing program, the amount of street cuts actually was substantially reduced from what was first estimated after the adoption of the ordinance. And again, we look at that as a positive, again, because the incentive really was to reduce the amount of cuts. Rather than, at that time, it was not a full cost recovery. Primary objective was really a way to stop the cutting. So We had one council instruction in the mid-2000s and an increase in 2006 of the street damage restoration fee, and adoption of a 2-year SDRF for slurry streets as well. And since that time, there really hasn't been an appetite, as we're aware, to increase the fees until lately under the Street Smart initiatives, and that's why we're here today with this report back.
Thanks, Mr. Olive. What's the Bureau doing as far as we may have discussed this months ago, but remind me, the communication that's taken place between the utility companies and also the residents when the streets are planned to be slurry sealed?
With slurry seal, okay.
Right.
Slurry seal is a little bit different.
I'm sorry, resurfacing.
Yeah, resurfacing and slurry are a little bit different, but with the residents, we actually send a letter no less than 30 days in advance to the property owners of record, informing them of the approximate time we're going to be resurfacing the street, along with our contact information, and to let us know of any planned work they have so that we can defer any resurfacing work if they can't do it ahead of the
Most
time.
importantly, the utility companies, because often they may complain that we didn't know, we weren't aware of it.
It's a little different with the utility companies. So in addition to that, with the property owners, we also, 48 to 72 hours in advance, we actually have a flyer that we hand deliver to each and every door. So if we get, residents that are renters, what have you, they'll know as well. Utilities and other agencies, we do coordinate with over 200 of these agencies, and we let them know at least a year in advance on what we're looking at for the coming year as far as, and again, this is in
fiscal year,
in advance.
July, or calendar year?
So about this time, we're letting them know for fiscal year 16-17 already.
I see.
So, and again, it's not that accurate, but it's a laundry list of everything we're potentially looking at, because they'll come back with various hold requests because they have planned
Got it.
projects in 2, 3, 4 years, so they'll drop off. Things happen during the year, budget changes, what have you. So
Okay.
we do that. We also do a 30-day committed list in advance. So that's pretty much the firm list of streets we're going to be doing the following month, and that goes out to that same list of utilities
Got
and
it.
agencies.
And its recommendation is to call for a new study. Is that my understanding? Why is it important to have a new study?
So there's several recommendations. So on a shorter term, our friends here from the CAO, along with the city attorney, are going to do a cost and fee study to look at the findings from the original engineering study, but to also look at the costs incurred by other departments besides street service that support us in the resurfacing program, and also look at, obviously, 20 years later, the cost of money has changed. So that's what we're going to do, be reporting back in 60 days. The longer-term study, we really need to take another engineering look at this. So there's been a lot of changes in the last 20 years. As one example, articulated buses have been introduced, which create a large amount of damage to the city streets. So we want to hire the same engineering firm we had 20 years ago, who's a nationwide expert in this science.
Yeah, we should have Metro pay for some of this
That's-
the work, the
We're-
damage that's
we're-
being
we're-
done. I know we've been talking about that as well. It just kills me. Our buses are eating up our streets, and yet they're not helping with the
We're with you
restoration
there.
fee.
We're with you there. So that's going to be a longer term. Our friends here at CAO are going to help us find the money to enter into that personal services contract. The motion also contemplated looking at the damage done to roadways from construction activity and heavy loads.
Yeah.
Now, we're kind of starting at square zero there. So our friends from BOE, and I don't think DOT knows it yet, but we're going to volunteer them to work with BOE to report back in 90 days with what a scope of work would be and how much it would cost to do a study really from scratch there.
Got it.
You also talked about in the motion about coming up with a plan on how to update the SDRF periodically. So that's the recommendations in here too, once we have that consultant study done on how we're going to do that. And finally,
What's the timeline on the study? When can we see some results of that?
again, that's going to, we didn't put a timeline on this because it's really going to depend once the funding gets identified. I think
I just don't want to talk about the study a year from now.
no,
That's what.
we actually have a preliminary quote from the consultant that I think we actually in the report had a
Okay,
time
so
estimate.
7 months after
It's
the
about
contract.
9 months after award.
7 to 9 months. Okay.
Yeah. After award of that contract. The last recommendation is, again, that BOE is going to come back within 90 days on best practices for performing street repair cuts.
Yeah, I see that. Okay, that's good.
That was also part of the motion.
Okay. CAO, do you want to pitch in on this item?
So the only thing I'd like to add is that the budget did assume the fee increase occurring in 15-16.
Okay,
And so that's already assumed in the budget.
very good. Great. Okay. I know many of you are here. I'm really happy that you're here on this, on item 6, I know, but for you to listen and to hear some of the concerns that we have as a city and the challenges that we're faced with improving our streets and our infrastructure. Raise your hand if you've driven over a pothole in the city of Los Angeles. I'm not one hand up. I see a few. Or biked over it, right? So this is great that you're all here. We're going to approve item 1's report, but Michael, I want to request City Clerk to include the recommendations for items 1 through 5 in a single committee report, as all these reforms are all interrelated and should be considered as a package. So that would be the direction. Okay, let's uptake item number 2. Thank you so much.
Item number 2 is a report from the City Administrative Officer relative to the project status update and staffing requests regarding retrofitting the city's asphalt plant number 1.
Good afternoon. Oh,
How are you? This is another good government measure that, for some background for those who are visiting here, it seems like we were kind of spending more money on getting more asphalt coming into the city where we haven't really considered improving our own asphalt plant. And this is one of the Street Smart motions that calls for retrofitting our city's asphalt plant, number 1, AP1 we call it. So give us an estimated cost of retrofitting AP1 and overall the benefits of doing such.
yeah, if you don't mind, I'll go ahead and give you an overview as to where we're at with this project.
Thank
My name's Alma Gibson with the CAO's office. Currently, the city has appropriated approximately $10 million in MICLA funds for the retrofitting of the asphalt plant number 1. The overall scope of work will entail the replacement and modernization of the existing facility into a new highly efficient plant, which is anticipated to increase the recycle asphalt plant or asphalt pavement usage to approximately 50%. Now, this recycled asphalt usage will improve the structural integrity of the asphalt pavement, according to GSD Standards Division. This project will be awarded using the city's design-build project delivery method managed by the Bureau of Engineering, in consultation with, obviously, the Bureau of Street Services. Consultants have been hired to prepare a 30% design documents, which will be the bridging documents for the bid and award process to select the design-build general contractor, and it's estimated that that's going to occur by September 2015.
It's great progress.
The cons-
Significant. Really
Yes.
good. Thank you.
And the construction is expected to begin around May 2016, and it's going to take approximately 18 to 24 months to complete.
When was the last time we made some improvements at this plant? Long time ago.
Long time ago, I believe.
Ron?
But I do want to point out,
I know. When was the last time we made some
This
improvements?
plan has been at its current location since 1947.
And we haven't touched it since?
no.
Well,
Exactly.
maintenance and upkeep, but
This maintenance
it
and
is
upkeep?
it is
Okay.
1947 technology.
Gotcha.
So it's
Go ahead,
required. So,
continue,
yeah,
sorry.
I just wanted to point out and answer the question that you initially asked,
Yeah.
which was the overall estimate cost at this time is about $20 million. However, we will be able to get a more definite answer once the designs are complete, or a definite estimate. Our office, along with the Bureau of Engineering and Bureau of Street Services, will be looking also into the possibility of a joint partnership and cost-sharing option, or the viability of selling asphalt as well. Our office will be planning to continue to provide project status updates to council via what we call the construction projects report. However, this report at this time is being transmitted in order to recommend that the Bureau of Engineering be authorized 2 resolution authority positions. The positions are 1 civil engineer and 1 civil engineer associate 3 to provide support for the design and the bid and award construction and post-construction management work for the remainder of the fiscal year, and to request that they will be reauthorized for fiscal year 2015-16. And this is to
So
ensure...
we have the positions in place, but we need to reauthorize them for 15-16 fiscal
No,
year?
we're requesting
We're
to
requesting-
increase
increase it.
two positions within the Bureau of Engineering.
For next
To
fiscal year.
add, yes, to resolution authorities. And that's the purpose, really, of the main purpose of this report, and that's what we're recommending, and we hope that you do approve, so that, again, the Bureau of Engineering is able to continue to provide the focused
So
project
our
management
budgets,
work.
there's a lot of moving parts in the budget that we just approved. Were those two positions included?
They were not,
They were not?
No.
Okay.
so...
All right.
This is the
Dennis,
reason
let's
why
just,
this...
if we look at the next quarter, as far as advocating for those two positions.
Well, again, this report recommends that these positions be added, and then the funding source is coming from savings within the Bureau of Street Services salary accounts.
Got it.
And that's it. We have...
Thank you so much. I feel that once we make these improvements to Asphalt Plant 1, there's maybe a money-making opportunity with some local jurisdictions. We've talked about this in this committee. If we can maximize our resources and bring some added dollars, we can pave more streets, right? That's doesn't take a brain surgeon to figure that out. Do we know if we can effectively partner with the local jurisdictions? Do we have city attorney here?
We haven't
Oh,
really sat
there he
down
is.
and...
There's Ted. Chad Jordan, thank you for joining us. It seems like every time we bring up this issue of partnering with local jurisdictions, we really don't get a direct answer. Is it possible to partner with some local cities to use this plant?
Yes, it is possible to partner with local cities or other entities
Okay.
to do this plan.
And in turn, we can earn some dollars from them using our asphalt plant.
Well, I think what you're referring to is the concerns under the city charter in the purely commercial endeavors. When I say partner, I mean entering into a partnership. The details that have not been really fully analyzed, for example, joint ownership and those types of partnerships would I think, achieve that same goal. Another option, and I'm not saying it's would be allowed or not, would be simply making the asphalt and selling it to people.
Right.
When you do that, that begins to look more like a commercial activity.
Commercial activity, gotcha.
So the direct answer to your question, can we partner with other jurisdictions, is yes, we can. The exact way that can be done would have to be analyzed once some specific proposals have been identified.
Got it. Okay. Okay. We go with that? Fantastic. Thank you, Mr. Jordan, for that opinion. Okay, with that, on item number 2, we will approve the CAO's report and send that to council. Actually, let's reconsider. Yeah, gotcha. We're going to reconsider item 1 and 2. We have 2 cards, 2 speaker cards. Antonia Ramirez. Is she here? Come forward, please. You can speak. You'll be given 1 minute on each item. So 2 minutes, and you can speak on both items.
Thank you. This is a matter of principle. Let's begin with the restoration and street damage around the LA City Hall. Our illustrious city presence is shameful. The LA City steps down when you exit on the 3rd floor facing Spring Street is crawling with a barrage of large cockroaches. I could not believe what I saw about 2 nights ago. I was sitting on these city steps at about 2 a.m. admiring the navy blue skies and glimmering stars, for it was cold and crisp. Suddenly, I see all these movements on the ground. Yuck. Then I got my little Tokyo magazines and started whacking the mothers. And I left a trail of dead smashed cockroaches. Well, I looked around and saw gaping holes in the cement steps. And bingo, I saw cockroach antennas peering out as I pointed my flashlight into these cockroach-infested cement holes all over our LA City Hall steps. So we are inundated by large, disgusting cockroaches all over our city foundation. They live better than our homeless military veterans. Having said that, item
Okay, your
number
time
2.
is up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay, let's take item number 3, please. Again, also on this item, let's bring up, we have a representative from Councilmember Blumenfield's office, Stephanie Rockwell. Stephanie here. Thank you so much for joining us.
And item number 3 is a report from the Bureau of Engineering relative to conveying to the Board of Public Works the authority to make exemptions to the one-year moratorium and investigating the feasibility of increasing the city's street cut moratorium from 1 to 3 years.
So as we discussed many times before, cutting into a street shortens its usable life. What we're attempting to do here is strike a balance between protecting our streets and recognizing there are situations that arise when cutting into new streets are unavoidable. There's a difference between repairing and ruptured sewer lines and performing regular maintenance that can be scheduled around the Bureau's resurfacing plans. There's 28,000 lane miles in this city, and the council doesn't have the time to effectively weigh in on each situation. The Board of Public Works, the city's only full-time board, which meets 3 times a week, is better equipped making these decisions and these exemptions. We also need to be careful that our moratorium doesn't stifle economic development or prohibit the installation of new utilities that would have a great benefit to the city, such as the proposed City Link project that Councilman Blumenfield has been working on. And if you can, give us an overview of the project, of the report, and why you're recommending the city stick with the current one-year moratorium.
Sure. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Ted Allen, Deputy City Engineer with the Bureau of Engineering. As you mentioned, the city has a one-year moratorium against excavation cuts after resurfacing. Any cuts during that period, the entities are required to resurface the entire block from curb face to curb face. And we were asked to look at whether that should be extended to a 3-year moratorium, and also, as you mentioned, whether the Board of Public Works would make sense as a body to oversee the exemption process and have a formal exemption process. I reported here about a few months ago, and we were leaning towards the 3-year moratorium, so it's a bit of a switch to come back and recommend 1 year. And the reason for that is after further discussion, we decided that with the current technology that's available and the coordination, that the 1-year moratorium allows us to maintain less exemptions, and so maybe it actually provides a better benefit for the city. With a 3-year moratorium, we felt like we would probably need blanket exemptions for new service cuts because people just can't plan those that far out. There are some hybrid models that we still think may be worth considering in the future, but for now we recommend staying with the 1-year moratorium. But we do recommend a number of improvements to the code. I'll highlight a few of the major ones. We recommend that the code be clarified that any exemptions granted during that first year would still be required to pay the street damage restoration fee. We recommend to continue the exemption in cases where the property owners weren't properly notified. Those are not frequent at all, but it's proper to keep that, we feel. We want to formally recognize the exemptions for emergencies that are properly documented. There's a different section of the code that covers emergencies, so they've been exempted already anyway, but we felt it would be better to clean that up and formally note it in this section. And we recommend authorizing the Board of Public Works to grant project-specific exemptions when it can either be shown that they couldn't have planned the work for some reason or otherwise in the city's best interest. An example could be, as you mentioned, like the City Link LA, if the city so chose. We recommend authorizing additional categorical exemptions by council resolution rather than an ordinance change. So another way of handling City Link, should the council decide they wanted to give a categorical exemption to that, they could do that by resolution and not by an ordinance change, which takes some time, as you know.
Right.
And it would authorize the city engineer to maintain standard repair requirements for work during that moratorium period, which may go beyond our typical trench repair because it's so early in the life of that street. We would want to make sure it's going to hold up for a longer period. And as well, it would authorize the Board of Public Works to go beyond even the city's normal, the city engineer's normal standards if they felt necessary in a certain case where they're granting an exemption. So it would in effect allow them to grant partial exemptions. And the last one, continue the requirement to pave the full block in cases where an exemption is not granted.
Stephanie, I know we have a letter submitted by Mr. Blumenfield.
Yeah, and just to go over a few of the points there, thank you for your work on the Street Smarts initiative. And as part of this report, the councilman is requesting that categorical exemption be made for major telecommunication projects because, as you know, the RFP for the City Link LA is about to be released.
Yeah.
We're asking the private sector to make a significant investment in our city infrastructure. And as part of that, we would like to offer a series of incentives in order to bring in that investment to the
Right.
city. And this would be a major step
Yes.
to help this initiative. So I appreciate your
Well,
consideration.
please thank your boss, Mr. Blumenfield, for leading this charge and improving the way we communicate in the city of Los Angeles. Our ultimate goal is to have free Wi-Fi in the city, and this is recognizing the importance of this significant $5 billion private investment. I'm going to amend the report to include an additional categorical exemption to the moratorium for the City Link project. Okay?
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for your report. Did you get that, Michael?
So that will be approved as amended?
As amended.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Item number 4, continuing with our Street Smarts initiatives.
Item number 4
Motions, yeah.
is a report from the Bureau of Street Services relative to prioritizing the improvement of streets with high traffic volumes and or weight limitation loads above and beyond Surrey Steel when excess funding is available.
So for residents that are joining us here, give us an example between what's a residential street versus an what do we do with the arterial streets? What's the difference between the two?
Again, Ron Olive, Bureau of Street Services. An arterial street is a major secondary highway, much wider street, carrying truck traffic, bus traffic, and larger volumes of vehicle traffic.
Like a Western Avenue,
Western Avenue, Wilshire,
Figueroa.
Figueroa,
Got it.
yeah,
Got it.
et cetera, et cetera. And residential street basically is local streets, also the synonym. Much narrow streets serving local neighborhoods. And you also have collector streets that residential streets feed into to get to arterials, but those are typically kind of fall in the middle. But this motion really contemplates, I think it agrees with best management practices, and what we're currently doing is that our number one priority has to be to at least maintain the overall condition of the street network.
Right.
We use the pavement condition index, the
PCI index, right?
Right now, it's basically a grade of a C, a 62, and it really took us a long time over the last 10 years to get to a point. Actually, over the last 10 years, we've been able to maintain that 62, and maybe even it creeped up a point or two. So we really don't want to backslide and have it deteriorate further. So the funding required to at least maintain that under the formula that we're currently using, which again is the best management
Right.
budget allocation formula, we're going to maintain that. This motion actually looks at any future funding that may be in addition to that from these initiatives, possibly some other revenue sources, to focus those solely on arterial streets. We are supportive of that. I think we fall short of outright recommending that because, again, we like to see the condition of the overall network improve. But given a number of initiatives, Great Streets Initiative, goods movement, bike lanes
Right.
that are arterial streets, basically on bike lanes are on arterial streets, and really the generally heavier use of arterials, so we can support it in that means. If you asked us maybe 5-10 years ago, maybe we wouldn't be so supportive because residential streets were really in worse condition than arterials. But we've really made a concerted effort to bring up the condition of the residential streets in the past several years, and now they're about the same condition. So we think we can, again, focus on arterials as long as we can maintain at least the condition of the residentials.
Got it. again, just for some historical reference, those who are visiting us today, our streets, 28,000 lane miles in the city of Los Angeles, a third of them are in D or F condition. A third, that's nearly, 8,000, 9,000 lane miles?
I think 8,200, I think was the
8,200
number
lane miles
West
that
LA.
are in D and F. So why is it important to prevent a street from falling into the D and F category? Because ultimately we wouldn't be able to get to them, right?
Yeah, it's a multi-pronged approach. We really need to keep the A's and B's in as good a condition as possible. So, and slurring seal, which is a small fraction of the cost of resurfacing and especially reconstruction. If we apply slurry seal every 5 to 7 years on good condition streets, we can double the life of those streets. And that's primarily done on local/residential streets. We don't slurry seal arterials.
Right.
Now the C's, C minuses, D pluses, we really need to resurface those. At
Right.
2.5 inch, 3 inch, mill and pave operation. Again, it's a cost, but it's much cheaper to save those streets from failing than it is to try to reconstruct a failed street, where we have to dig up not only the pavement but the base underneath it, and then bring in new
Which is
material.
more costly.
Oh, much more costly.
So the D's and F's, obviously, is complete reconstruct.
Complete reconstruct. Right now, our focus is, reaching 2,400 lane miles of pavement preservation every year. Again, we don't want to backslide from that, but to achieve that goal with the amount of funding that is being allocated, the reconstruction is really kept at a minimum. It has to be, because we can't afford to do them. So we have to save as many of those C streets as we can with resurfacing.
Very important issue. Streets and sidewalks are the most visible representation of local government, and it's important that we improve our infrastructure. I know we're moving forward on our sidewalks. Really excited to lead the policy discussion on that piece, but also streets are equally important. So thank you so much, Ron, for your report.
Thank you.
So with that, there's one issue I had with this, and that's the word consider. I want to amend the report to strike the word consider, so that recommendation for council action was to adopt a policy prioritizing arterial streets for pavement preservation funding when available over that required to maintain the overall street network condition. So is that clear? Get rid of the word consider and replace it with to adopt a policy. I don't want us to consider a policy. We want it to adopt a policy. So we have some movement and progress being made.
Yes, Mr. Chair, and that will be adopted as amended, correct?
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you, Ron.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, our fifth and final Street Smart item number 5.
Item number 5 is the Bureau of Contract Administration 2 report relative to the feasibility of utilizing radio frequency identification, otherwise known as RFID tag technologies, to better identify and track utility contractors and private developers undertaking street cuts within the public right-of-way.
Cousin Ron.
And a report has been submitted since.
Report's here. Thank you. Cousin Russ, we're both Italian. I'm sure we're related somewhere down the line.
Yes, sir. I'm
Right?
sure.
Are all Italians related?
That's right. Yes, sir. Good to see you again.
My wife and I are not, though. I'm sure you said that. We're not. Let me make it clear. We checked. Good afternoon. Good to see you.
Sir.
So this is the RFID piece.
Yes.
Give us some history background for those who are joining us here.
Yes, sir. Russ Drizella, Chief Construction Inspector for the Bureau of Contract Administration, Public Works. This is a research report on new technology. The topic of trench repairs is first and foremost in the community's mind these days. And among the complexities of the issue is an element that has to do with providing a 5-year warranty for the repairs made. Trenches will occasionally fail despite every effort to perform the field repair correctly, and that's backed up by a lot of studies also. When they do, however, it's necessary for those guaranteeing the trench to resolve the problem quickly in the interest of public safety. The city engineer's requirement is that these trenches be labeled so that the staff that works for you can return to those locations and in case of a failure, and determine as quickly as possible the date of the paving and who was responsible for the repair. And currently, and for quite some time, the city has required metal devices we call medallions, and there's an illustration in the report
I saw that.
to do this job. We're pleased to report back on new technology that's in use and has proven a valuable and more reliable tool for this purpose, and I have a picture of that in here. It's from the technology used by the city of Dayton, Ohio. It consists of a programmable tag, looks a little bit like a pipe cleaner, which is very resistant to temperature. It's embedded in the top layer of the paving, and it delivers a code that is read by an instrument that an inspector can use to identify the permit, the permittee, and the date of the final acceptance.
It's like a barcode for streets, right?
It's like that, but a radio frequency. It works the same way.
What happens if we repave, reconstruct the road, and it gets buried or gets dug up?
The limitations, Mr. Fink told me on the technology are roughly 2 inches. We can fudge a little and go a little deeper, but it needs to be in the top cap, the top 2 inches. So that's after the base paving. Now that would usually protect it from what's called cold planing. When we grind a street services will come in and grind a street. If they're not going down more than an inch and a half, it'll still remain. When a street gets taken up, it's going to disappear.
And then you'll be communicating with Ron Olive's shop and
Yes, sir.
for the replacement of the tag, right?
Yes, sir. And also, in the full program, we talk about in the report, we're proposing a pilot, but we outline a full program where street services would actually have a couple of these wands themselves.
This is another great way of finding these efficiencies with how we hold those who are, trenching our streets, hold them accountable, and so that we know, time and place where these locations are located.
This will save a lot of time and a lot of staff time because currently our means of tracking this stuff down is really archaic. We have to go back, compare locations to dates, addresses in the databases or in paper. This inspector holding one of these wands in the future, after these have been embedded, can just walk up, wave the wand, and get the information real time with zero time taken. So we're pretty excited about it. And we'd like to thank the city engineer and the director of public works, Steve Fink, of the city of Dayton, for his valuable time that he shared with us, and also CDO, the company that manufactures this unique product. It's not used anywhere else, not made anywhere
So
else.
CDO is willing to work with the city, CDO Technologies?
Yes, sir. I was in a conference call with Dennis Gleason and David Hirano, where we talked to their representatives. They gave us a quote, a participatory quote, which Mr. Gleason or Mr. Hirano could
I
probably
saw that.
articulate better.
How many tags can we get with the
500.
500 tags for
they're
about
gonna break
$100,000?
500 of a pack. They show the value of the whole pack, but they show that that's they've knocked the price down. So.
Mr. Hirano, no RFPs needed for this, not
given-
sole sourcing this, given that it's special technology?
Correct. We've checked with city attorney on this, and given that this is a pilot project, this is okay to go ahead and.
Very good.
If we do proceed to a full project, we would have to reconsider that and determine whether we can still do a sole source or we need to go through
Okay.
an RFP process.
Very good. So I understand you have some recommendations?
Yes, we were asked to deliver some recommendations to you that would allow funding for this, discuss this with the Bureau, and given the timing of what needs to happen over the next couple of weeks, we think and where we are in the fiscal year, we think it's best if the council authorized the Bureau to appropriate money within their 15-16 budget and move this thing forward during the summer.
Appreciate that. Again, just leading with a sense of urgency on all these items, so really appreciate the work.
Right, so I've given you the recommendations.
Great. Michael, you have a copy of this for the recommendations? Do we need to read it into the record? You're good?
Would you like to read them, or would you like me to read them?
I'm asking, do you need to
Sure,
read it?
let me read them.
Okay, go
And
ahead.
is this in addition to the contract?
Yes.
Yeah,
Right.
okay.
Thank you.
So instruct the city clerk to place on the agenda for the first regular council meeting after June 30th, 2015, or shortly thereafter, the following instructions. That the council, subject to the approval of the mayor, number one, authorize the Bureau of Contract Administration to appropriate $17,300 within the Bureau's operating supplies account 006020, Fund 100, Department 76 for the RFID pilot project, and to contract out for the pilot subject to the approval of the city attorney. And number two is authorize the city administrative officer to make any technical adjustments required to implement the intent of the council and the mayor.
Very good. So we'll approve item 5 as amended. Thank you, gentlemen, for your
Thank you, sir.
report. Really appreciate it. Michael, we're going to have to reconsider item 4. I failed to bring up Speaker Antonia Ramirez. Please come forward. She's still here? Thank you. This is on item number 4.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
There goes my microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, relative to prioritizing the improvement of streets with high traffic volumes, let's consider we can make all the current improvements on the streets with the high traffic volumes, but consider we are going to have, within the next 5 years, we're going to have an explosion of massive traffic volumes that is going to be astronomical. How much of an improvement on the streets currently are we going to make, or are we going to project in the future? Because again, we are in a bad gridlock everywhere throughout Los Angeles. Do we have a certainty of these high traffic volumes in the next 5 or 10 years? It's going to be massive. Can the street improvements that we fix now sustain the future gridlock in the next 5 or 10 years? That's my concern. And how much weight limitation loads and all that good stuff will the slurry seal hold? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll approve item number 4.
I apologize.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Fantastic. Sergio, how are you? Okay, we'll take now the long-awaited item number 6.
Item number 6 is a mitigated negative declaration and Board of Public Works report relative to the Glendale Boulevard Hyperion Avenue Complex of Bridges Improvement Project, CEQA compliance and project approval.
Thank you. We can begin the presentation with BOE. You just identify yourselves for the record, please. Daryl and Dennis, the double Ds here, get your heads out of the way.
Good afternoon, Councilman. Shirley Lau with the Bureau of Engineering Bridge
Shirley, thank you.
Improvement Program. This item before you is the consideration and adoption of the initial study and mitigated negative declaration for the Glendale Hyperion Avenue Complex of Bridges. This ISMND, as prepared in accordance to the California Environmental Quality Act guidelines, finds that the proposed project with mitigation will not have a significant environmental impact. So in order to present the project scope, I will be referring to a brief PowerPoint presentation. Sorry.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Oh, there you go.
Okay. The Glendale Hyperion Complex of Bridges comprises of 6 bridge structures connected together and was completed in 1929, spans approximately 1,190 feet over the LA River, I-5, and Riverside Drive. This bridge complex is LA Historic Cultural Monument number 164 and is eligible for listing in the National Register of Historic Places. This project has been developed through over 10 years of coordination with Council Districts 4 and 13, the neighborhood councils, community groups, and our federal, state, and local agencies. The proposed project limits on Hyperion Avenue are between Ettrick Street and slightly south of Glen Feliz Boulevard. On Glendale Boulevard, the project runs between slightly south of Glen Feliz Boulevard to the Interstate 5 freeway. There are currently multiple needs and deficiencies within that project area. Specifically, per the Caltrans bridge evaluation, these bridges are Category 1 bridges, which are mandated by the state to be retrofitted. Category 1 also means the bridges may experience major damages during a strong earthquake event. Secondly, Glendale Boulevard bridges currently has substandard sidewalks and no bike lanes.
Are those current existing sidewalks ADA compliant?
On Glendale Boulevard, no. They're only about 3 to 4 feet wide.
Got it.
The I-5 off-ramp traffic are allowed to make a right turn only, and there's insufficient sight distance to see the oncoming traffic. The LA River bike path can only be accessed from southbound Glenville Boulevard right now. And the bridge has lost its original historic character due to covering of the balustrade railings with concrete. And lastly, on Hyperion Avenue, there are no continuous ADA-compliant sidewalks on either side through the entire project area.
I should have waited for your presentation, sorry.
And there are no bike lanes. The need to correct the deficiencies that we just went over, along with the incorporated mitigation measures, result in the proposed project with the following main components. We have seismic strengthening to the substructure elements. They'll be performed on 5 out of the 6 bridge structures. The exception is Waverly Drive. Each of the Category 1 bridge structures requires seismic retrofitting to meet current design standards of the city and the state. Both the northbound Glendale Boulevard Bridge and the southbound Glendale Boulevard Bridge will be widened by 8 feet to provide room for a widened sidewalk and also a bike route. There will be no additional vehicular travel lanes that will be added. The existing I-5 northbound off-ramp would be realigned to connect with northbound Glendale Boulevard. This realignment would improve the sight distance, and we will be adding a traffic signal. So in addition to being safer for motorists, pedestrians can also use that to cross. Another component that's also shown here is the installation of an access entrance to the LA River bike path from the northbound Glendale Boulevard. Currently, as earlier I explained, there is only access from the southbound Glendale Boulevard. During construction, the Glendale Boulevard bridges over the LA River will be closed off to pedestrians. So in order to maintain uninterrupted pedestrian traffic, this pedestrian bridge over the LA River on the existing red car piers will be constructed prior to the widening of the Glendale Boulevard bridges. And it will remain as a permanent pedestrian access route after construction. A future infiltration basin will be constructed at the Sunny Nook Park as a permanent water quality best management practice for purposes of controlling runoff from the bridge. This basin will provide detention and infiltration as a pre-treatment of stormwater prior to discharge into the LA River. The existing railings along the Hyperion Avenue and Glendale Boulevard bridges, as well as the Waverly Bridge, were originally balustrades but were covered with concrete in 1962. As a treatment, replicating the original railing meets the Secretary of the Interior standards for the treatment of historic properties and has been encouraged as an appropriate treatment for this historic property. And in addition to the railings, the street light posts would also be carefully removed, stored, refurbished, and reused. And overall, this historic restoration is part of the mitigation measures for the historic resources. Now I'll have some discussions on Hyperion Avenue and its roadway configuration. Along Hyperion Avenue, there are currently no ADA-compliant sidewalks on either side that traverses the entire project area. Once you get closer to the Waverly Drive Bridge, there are only 2-foot curbs near the retaining wall at Waverly Drive Bridge, right along the abutment and the retaining wall, and it's adjacent to the traffic. And so you can see in this photo here that those are the 2-foot curbs there. We performed some pedestrian volume counts in March of 2014. It indicates that in a 12-hour period between 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., we had a total of 106 pedestrians using the bridge. 82 used the west side and 24 used the east side. So it shows a higher volume on the west side. And later on, I will show you the recommended option per our ISM&D, and it does install a ADA compliant sidewalk on the west side.
I'm assuming the 12-hour volumes was like 6, what were the times?
7 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Got it.
We did the same thing for the bicyclist volumes.
Same time?
Same time frame, 12 hours, and a total of 85 bicyclists within the 12-hour time on the bridge.
How many of them were street bloggers? Oh.
They can identify themselves.
Few? Just a few?
This table compares the 12-hour volumes from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. of all three modes, pedestrian, bicyclists, and vehicles. And so we have 106 pedestrians, 85 bicyclists, and 18,998 vehicles. The ISMND was prepared in 2013 and found potential impacts on biological resources, historic resources, archaeological resource, and traffic. However, mitigation measures are included in this project. And the ISMND was circulated for public review and comment in fall of 2013. In 2013, this is the cross-section of Hyperion Avenue with 4 travel lanes, sidewalk on the west side only, a continuous concrete median barrier, and no bike lanes. During the public review period, we received a total of over 2,300 comments, and the vast majority of the comments expressed a desire for bike facilities, pet facilities, and traffic calming improvements. So subsequent to that public review, a Citizens Advisory Committee was formed and 5 meetings were held between December 2013 and December 2014. There were 4 design options that were discussed.
Sorry, who was on the Citizens Advisory Committee? Do we have representation from, we have representatives here? Thank you. Thank you for your service on the committee.
Yes, there were 9 members total.
Any representatives from the council offices? You were on the committee as well.
This is Exhibit 1A, which was considered. This had 4 vehicular travel lanes and 2 shared use paths where both bicyclists and pedestrians would use the path. This is Exhibit 1, which has 4 travel lanes, sidewalk on the west side only, and bike lanes on both sides. This exhibit is the closest to our final recommended option. Exhibit 2 was also considered. This was proposing a reduction of 1 traffic lane in the northbound direction towards Atwater. So there would be a total of 3 travel lanes on the bridge, sidewalk on the west side only, bike lanes on both sides, and bike lane buffers on both sides. Exhibit 3 was considered, also with 3 travel lanes, with the reduction of lane going northbound into Atwater, sidewalks on both sides, bike lanes on both sides, and bike buffers on both sides.
Are the buffers raised?
No.
Just markings?
Yes. Did you have any further questions?
Nope. Go ahead, thank you.
Oh, okay. I would like to just go into briefly some of the traffic items, specifically on the level of service currently on Hyperion Avenue. First of all, level of service is a measure of traffic performance on the roadway, and we use letters from A to F, A being the best with F as failure. These are images on what the level of service, LOS, would look like. So earlier I mentioned that we would, for the 3-lane options, we would reduce 1 lane in the northbound direction. So this table shows the various level of service should we do that reduction. Currently, in the northbound direction in the morning, the volumes are at level of service A, and in the evening it's at level of service B. Looking at the second column, so using the 2014 volume, should we reduce down to 3 lanes, then the northbound direction would be downgraded to a level C, and the northbound PM would downgrade to a level D. Also, looking at 2040 volumes, it would downgrade even further to level D in the northbound AM and level E in the northbound PM. So from a CEQA perspective, this downgrade and level of service would be a significant impact and would require further review and evaluation. So this comes to our final recommended option as part of this ISMND. We did consider all the design options and the traffic data, and we propose this configuration on Hyperion Avenue with 4 vehicular travel lanes, 2 bike lanes, no continuous median barrier, and an ADA compliant sidewalk on the west side.
Just on the west side. Explain to me the 1-inch barrier?
The one,
What's it? Okay,
a barrier, yes.
between the sidewalk and the bike lane?
Oh, yes. Those are, they call them crash barriers. Those are required by Caltrans because of the historic railing replication. They're not, those are to protect vehicles from going over onto the freeway. So those are required by Caltrans as part
And,
of the design.
and do you have barrier between traffic lane and the bike lane?
No.
Why
There's
not?
a 6-inch curb. In discussions, we have been.
So it's a raised curb.
Yes, that
So
shows.
that's a dedicated bike lane?
Yes, a dedicated bike lane.
So the curb acts as a barrier between traffic and the bike lane?
Yes, that allows. That's a 6-inch curb that meets up to the 3-inch raised bike lane currently proposed.
Got it.
And so, regarding your question about other barriers, we are working with DOT to look at other, I guess, options to provide some kind of a barrier in between bike lane and travel lanes.
Yeah, I struggle with that. I don't know. I mean, can we, bollards, why can't we put bollards there?
Yes, we are working with DOT, and I think they have several different types of treatments
Okay.
that could be put in.
Okay. That's on the table, that's being discussed.
So the recommended option, as was just briefly shown, it offers flexibility of converting to other roadway options should the transportation conditions warrant it in the future. The daily load count of pedestrians on Hyperion Avenue would not warrant sidewalks on both sides by reducing one travel lane at this time. And we are implementing an ADA-compliant sidewalk on the west side of Hyperion Avenue, as well as designated bike lanes on both sides of Hyperion Avenue. Now I will ask my colleague Maria Martin from our Environmental Management Group to discuss the CEQA environmental review process.
Maria, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chair. The recommended option, which most closely resembles Exhibit 1, is to maintain the original 4-lane configuration of the circulated ISMND as modified to include addition of bicycle lanes to Hyperion Avenue and elimination of a continuous concrete median barrier. These project revisions do not create new significant impacts and do not change effectiveness of mitigation measures. Thus, no recirculation of the 2013 ISMND is required for approval of the recommended option.
I'm sorry, can you dumb down the ISMND for me, please?
The initial study is basically
Okay.
the document that provides the analysis for the mitigated negative declaration.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Mitigated negative.
Yes.
Just spell it out.
Space constraints.
Okay, gotcha.
The 2013 initial study mitigated negative declaration did not include, however, an alternative with 3 vehicle lanes. Approval of such an alternative would require additional CEQA review. At minimum, revision and recirculation of an initial study mitigated negative declaration, and if any potentially significant impact could not be mitigated to less than significant, an environmental impact report would be required. Additionally, since the close of the public period, over 400 comments, petitions, and surveys, and survey results have also been received and considered by city staff. No new environmental impacts that have not already been addressed were included in those submissions.
And I'll briefly go over the anticipated schedule. Should the CEQA be adopted by City Council by June 30th of 2015, we can start the final design phase early July, and then by June 30th of 2017. There are funds set aside by Caltrans to finish this design, and they are set to lapse on June 30th of 2017, so it is crucial for the city to use these federal funds before the lapsing date.
Why did the design take 2 years?
During this time, we also require permits from the U.S. Army Corps, from the Regional Water Board. We have to coordinate with also LA County Public Works. So all this needs to be, we need all the permits prior to
Is it like
moving
up to
this to
2 years
construction.
or within the 2-year time?
Within the
frame?
2 years. So we'll simultaneously work on
Just
all the
redesigning
plans.
Sampson Way in my district, and they're saying a 2-year design phase. It's like, you're killing me. 2 years to okay, but I know we're moving on that with Gary Lee Moore. Okay. Up to 2 years.
Yes.
Who's paying for this project?
Yes, I'll go into my next slide. It has a breakdown.
Oh, sorry.
So lastly, I want to just focus on the overall project. This project, with a total cost of approximately $50 million, it is funded by the Federal Highway Bridge Program. We have State Proposition 1B and Metro Call for projects. Very minimal city funds. City funds are simply just the 20% match to the Metro Call, which is $4 million, but most of the project is funded by the Federal Highway Bridge
Are
Program.
these use it or lose it funds?
Yes, they're all going by federal guidelines.
And what's our deadline to use these dollars?
Well, right now, the design funds are set to last June 30th of 2017. So once Caltrans sees that we're on our way to finishing the design, they already programmed the funds for construction, but they just haven't allocated into the specific year yet.
Got it.
So it took many years of collaboration with our funding agencies, along with the great support of our elected officials and our community groups, to receive funding to not only improve all the bridges, but to build a great project that will significantly improve the current conditions. Components such as the I-5 realignment, the bike access from the Glendale Boulevard northbound, the pedestrian bridge over the LA River, and the infiltration basin, they're not typically part of bridge improvement projects, but they did receive funding. And so any further delays in completing the design of the project will jeopardize this overall project. We do want to sincerely thank the many community members who are here today. We appreciate their commitment to this project and their participation in this process. Therefore, we do request the committee consider and adopt this initial study and mitigated negative declaration. And that concludes my presentation.
So there was some concern from Commissioner James during the Public Works discussion that if we don't move on this, we jeopardize the fact that we may lose some dollars, some funding. Is that true?
Yes, and so that
Which pocket of funding? Because I know there's a few. You got state dollars, metro dollars, federal dollars as well.
Right. So the one that I spoke about is the lapsing of the final design funds, and those are the Highway Bridge Program funds. Let's see, it's right here on
Those
the
are
top.
federal dollars?
Yes, those are the federal dollars. Metro Call for projects, it's roughly $4 million. We have been going every year to Metro to ask for an extension. I personally have gone already 2-3 years in a row. So those are definitely, we've extended beyond the time that typically Metro allows for, but they have been giving us extension on those. They would like to see some movement on the project.
Okay. Thank you so much for your report. Really appreciate the presentation. We have representatives from Mr. O'Farrell's office. Christine's here. Do you have anyone from Mr. LeBon's office here who would like to speak on this? Please come forward. I'd like to hear from the effective council districts. Christine, how are you?
Good afternoon, council members. Thank you.
For the record, I'm sorry, I'm joined by Mr. Price. Thank you very much for joining us.
Christine Peters, council member O'Farrell, 13th Council District. Thank you so much. I put some handouts together to highlight some of the concerns that our council office has had through the process. And Councilmember O'Farrell asked that you approve the recommended option as improved.
So he's supportive of option...
We're supportive of the recommended
option.
Because it's a hybrid of what initially was
Right.
proposed. In 2013, the Bureau of Engineering proposed an option that basically maintained highway quality on the bridge. It was 4 lanes of traffic with a K-rail down the middle with 1 sidewalk and no bicycle lanes, and no pedestrian activated crosswalks. So we felt strongly that there could be room for improvement, and they needed to continue to work with the public, and we heard loud and clear that people wanted bicycle lanes, they wanted bike access, they wanted connectivity to the LA River bike path, they wanted a safe...
So you're getting the trifecta here. With the,
Yes,
with
I
the
think
proposed
that,
project.
we always say that we live in the city of Los Angeles, which is a city of compromise. We're not rebuilding the bridge, we're retrofitting the bridge. And so we're not starting from scratch. We have to work within the infrastructure that we have. We do have a limited time frame. We do not want to lose this funding. Currently, we have a bridge that's seismically unsafe. It's completely unsafe for pedestrians. It's unsafe for bicyclists. So what we wanted to see was something that would work for everyone within the restraints that we have with funding and with our ability with the infrastructure. So these meetings started in 2002. So this has been a long time project. It's been going on for a long time. So there's another reason why there's an urgency to complete the process, because we do actually need to make it look like we are going to someday do this project. And we do want to have it done. It really is an unsafe bridge. One of the handouts that I gave you shows the existing conditions of the 2-foot curb that Shirley had in her presentation as well. And there's also some photographs of students trying to cross the street. There are no crosswalks. When you reach North Atwater, when you reach Atwater Village on the north side of the bridge, there is no safe way to cross this as a pedestrian. You literally take your life in your hands. And we're looking to improve that. The council member has committed to, upon completion of this project, that he has asked DOT to implement a complete pedestrian activated crosswalk that will take pedestrians across 8 lanes of traffic, which is currently something you cannot do. I mean, right now, even to cross the 2 lanes from what some people like to call a sidewalk, which is really just that sort of 2-foot curb that ultimately ends up in a 3 to 4 foot curb, you still have to step into vehicular traffic and cross. There is no way for a pedestrian to activate the ability to cross the street. So that right there for us is a huge improvement and something that we're not willing to see get lost in the process.
Got it.
The 2 bicycle lanes, LA is changing. We have heard loud and clear from the bicycling community that they want to be able to cross this bridge safely. And originally the proposal was to let bicycles run with the flow of traffic. And we didn't think that that was right, and we felt that there was room to work bicycle lanes into this program. And we've been working very closely with the LA County Bicycle Coalition and seeking their advice, because we had the same questions that you did about, should it be a raised bike lane, should it have protected bike lanes, should it have bollards, should it be completely separated from the lane of travel. And from a bicyclist perspective, and I'm a recreational bicyclist, so I only go on the bike path. I'm not going to take my chances on the bridge. But the folks who do and who want to commute and travel on this bridge safely, we respect their opinions. And so LACBC has given us notes on what they ultimately would like to see and think is the safest way to cross this bridge as a bicyclist. And we respect their opinions, and we want to continue working with them, with the Bureau of Engineering and DOT through the entire construction process to make sure that the facility is safe for everyone. And so getting a 6-foot wide sidewalk that starts from the south end and goes all the way to the north end that will get you to Atwater, and you can hit a signal and traffic will stop. And elderly, adults, people with children, students going to John Marshall High School, all will be able to feel safe finally crossing this bridge. So it's just really been a process of listening to the communities, listening to our neighbors on both sides. Mr. Labange represents Los Feliz and portions of Silver Lake. We represent Atwater Village and Silver Lake. And the communities, have spoken extensively and exhaustively, and taking all of that information and trying to come up with the best possible project to please everyone. Obviously, everyone's getting a little bit of something. Not one group is going to take away and say, we won. The community's winning, because we are going to have a bridge that can be safely crossed. And being able to cross this bridge as a pedestrian for the first time safely ever will be a huge win for the pedestrian community. And once we have the crosswalk put in that traverses the 8 lanes of traffic, the argument that pedestrians have to go around is moot, because Councilmember O'Farrell stands strongly behind making sure that crosswalk goes in across the full bridge.
Before I turn it over to our speaker cards, Mr. Price, do you have any questions for staff?
What's the timing on...
If I can bring up engineering back up.
What's the timing on the...
Shirley?
On construction plans? I mean, assuming the approvals are on track, what's the actual...
Yes. We anticipate that we'll start the final design phase and also acquiring all the permits necessary through the U.S. Army Corps, the Regional Water Quality Board, and LA County Flood Control District. We'll do that in parallel with our final design between July of this year and before the funds lapse by June 30th of 2017. So,
lapse date?
Yes, lapse date of the design funds that are currently allocated by Caltrans.
And do we need to acquire any more land on or around the bridge, or is that...
properties. I think we have a couple easements that are needed from the LA County Department of Public Works.
And then what's the proposed completion date of the project?
So we're anticipating construction to start July 2018, and it will probably last 2.5 to 3 years.
So we'll still be around here.
Yes.
2-year
One way
design,
or the other.
2.5-year project delivery.
The Army Corps.
Right, so I guess one of the things is we're only allowed to be in the LA River during the dry season, and so between October 15th and April 15th, we cannot be in the river. So the retrofitting portion of the bridges in the LA River, you're out
Got it.
like 6 months of the year.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay, we have the Honorable Tom Labange here representing Council District 4 to say a few words. Mr. Labange, welcome.
Thank you very much, and, Mr. Price, Mr. Bruce, how you know? I thank you. This project is long time coming. So important. I think when I first got elected, they started discussion here.
Yeah, we heard it a while back.
Comment, et cetera, et cetera. I think option one is the option. In our community, there is the Glendale Freeway that terminates by St. Teresa's Church, and all of a sudden, traffic just weave all through Silver Lake, South Silver Lake, Fletcher Drive, Rowena Avenue, Hyperion, and Los Feliz. And the options for trucks is basically this bridge. My brother Dennis, third word that he learned in life was Ralph's. Mom, Dad, and Ralph's. And Ralph still has a warehouse up on Little San Fernando Road in North Atwater District. The work of Mitchell Farrell's doing on this new bridge over what maybe Miss Peters explained to you, on the old Red Car Viaduct, really will improve accessibility on that. And the situation right now, and I
Exhibit
don't
A.
have this overhead.
Exhibit A, there it is.
Exhibit A, but this just shows the lanes.
Oh, yeah.
Bike lanes on both directions, 4 lanes of traffic, and then also you have a sidewalk on the west side. On the east side right now, if they were widening the Waverly Viaduct, do we have another picture of this right here? Who's running this?
Slide 17, I believe
Yeah.
you're referring to.
So at Waverly, it's still as narrow as could be. It's 18 inches maybe from the wall of the Waverly Viaduct, which is right
Oh,
there,
it is.
to the curb zone. They're not widening that. So they're not widening that. Also on the east side where it's heavy brush, I'll say the east side, or it's north-south, let's go south side. If you look at this as north being on the top of the sheet, there's a green area there. There's a sidewalk right down there that goes to a public stairs. It goes to a bike rail also down to Riverside Drive. And then there'll be a sidewalk all the way on the west side. On the east side, because it's so narrow, and you have to be walking on above the Waverly Viaduct for that to get to that position there. I think it's in the best interest of everybody for traffic. Sometimes traffic coming through the neighborhood is backed up as far south as Fountain, which you go Rowena, Griffith Park Boulevard, Tracy, Scotland, Lyric, all the way down to Fountain by King Middle School. So anything we do is a challenge, but to have a permanent 3-lane roadway will overwhelm the community. So I just want to also state, too, its various elevation levels, which does impact as you go from, let's say, the street at Griffith Park Boulevard. It's at 419 feet elevation. You go up to Rowena, another almost 20 feet at 439, and you go to Waverly, you're at 459, and then you go down the bridge into Atwater Village. So it will have opportunity with the new bridge and the new configuration. Was that explained to you as well by Caltrans?
Yeah, in the report.
Or the new off-ramp?
Surely did, yeah.
And to restore the historic bridge, and Mr. Price, I will get you one as well, but back in the 90s, I worked with the National Park Service in designating the Los Angeles River Bridges, which were part of the City River Beautiful America Beautiful River Beautiful Bridge program in the 20s that built bridges all the way down from the Riverside Drive Bridge north to the zoo, to the Hyperion Bridge, Figueroa Street Bridge, the Macy Street Bridge, now all the way down 4th Street, 6th Street, etc. So these bridges are very important, and the new design will restore the historic luster of the bridge that once crossed the river, as it will again, and crossed over Riverside Drive as you see. And I'll make a copy of this because you guys are very top in Public Works, and to see the design that's there. It's a memorial to the veterans of World War I.
Oh, okay.
And when we did dedicate the new flagpole, which was there originally, I was able to get a veteran, this was like almost 30 years ago, from the Riverside Senior Center, which was the Breakfast Club at the time, and they came with John Ferraro. You'll see how it's being redesigned right there with the 1929 ballads.
Yep.
And for the record, using a high school buddy's name, I nominated this for a monument in 1976, I think.
Okay.
So, John,
We got the
He
support.
was an Italian guy, so I used an Italian.
Another cousin of mine, yeah.
Yeah, you
Yes.
got it. You got it. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Labange.
Right now, there's flags on that bridge to recognize those who paid the ultimate price, and they'll be up through Labor Day. Thank you very much.
So we have support from Mr. O'Farrell and Mr. Labange. I'd like to hear from those who are here. Thank you so much, sir. We have a number of speaker cards, so in the best interest of time, and I know we had a lengthy agenda. I'm going to give you 1 minute to speak on the for or against the proposed recommendation. I'm going to call you at 3 at a time, so please, when you hear your name, please step forward and grab one microphone. Speak closely to the microphone when you come up and speak. First 3 speakers will be Miguel Luna, Karen Barnett, and Donald Siegelman. Sorry, Donald. Okay, I'll have you corrected. They butcher my last name. I apologize. Is it Miguel?
Yes, I am.
Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Miguel Luna. I'm the Executive Director of Urban Semillas, and I'm also the Council District 13 Pedestrian Advisory Committee appointee. I am here in support of the study. I believe it's been a long process thus far. I think that further review could jeopardize funding that would leave this improvements of making the bridge seismically safe, that would take away the compromises that have been made by all groups to include pedestrian, to include bike, and to include the needs of cars as well.
Thank you, sir. Karen?
Hi, I'm Karen Barnett. I am a resident of Atwater Village, and I am for moving forward. And the crosswalk is especially helpful to cyclists and pedestrians, and hopefully we can have a contiguous path on the east bank. I'd like to say there are only 3 ways to get through and across the LA River, and it is Fletcher Drive, Hyperion Glendale Bridge Complex, and Los Feliz. Thank you.
Thank you. And Donald.
I am Don Seligman, representing the Los Feliz Improvement Association, the oldest neighborhood organization in Los Angeles with 2,000 resident members living in the Los Feliz district immediately adjacent to the Glendale Hyperion Bridge. I was the association's representative on the Citizens Committee. We strongly support the modified option 1, which would upgrade the current unsafe 2-foot single sidewalk on the northwest side, add bicycle lanes, remove the dangerous median barriers, and correct the risky partial crosswalks on the Atwater side. In addition, option 1 does not remove any vehicular lanes. Thus, it would not degrade the current ability to cross the river, preserving evacuation and emergency corridors. Any lane reduction would precipitate a new EIR, which would likely postpone construction beyond the federal funding parameters. Furthermore, a new study by the Department of Engineering shows a high potential for rolling gridlocks extending along Hyperion in both directions if even one lane were to be removed. Thus, we strongly support approval of this project as now presented.
Thank you, sir. Next 3 speakers, Sergio Lombari, Don Ward, please come forward, and Jeff Jacobberger. How are you, sir?
Good afternoon. My name is Sergio Lombari, a board member of the Atwater Village Neighborhood Council and a member of the CAC for the Complex of Bridges Project. We, the Atwater Village Neighborhood Council, the Atwater Village Chamber of Commerce, the Atwater Village Residents Association, Friends of Atwater Village, along with hundreds of residents and businesses alike, find that Exhibit 1 incorporates the best of all aspects, yet allows for the most flexibility now and into the future. Exhibit 1 provides 4 lanes for the safe and efficient movement for private autos, service trucks, delivery trucks, buses, ambulances, fire trucks, and police cars. It also adds 2 5-forward bike lanes and an elevated ADA-compliant sidewalk. We need to keep in mind the expanding volume of traffic from the multifamily housing projects being built and planned around the area. The $1 Billion River Project, the planned 1,100 parking space New Life Vision Church, and the 2 major malls across our border in the city of Glendale. This is only one of 3 arteries that lead into Atwater Village. We should not restrict access for service and delivery trucks or for the residences that live in Atwater Village. Nor can we afford to have our emergency vehicles trapped on a confined roadway when critical seconds count. Improvement to the complex of bridges needs to take into account future growth. We cannot confine ourselves to a bottleneck configuration. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Michael, can you repeat what he just said? Thank you.
Good. My name's Jeff Jacobberger. I'm the chair of the city's Bicycle Advisory Committee. My problem is I have no idea what's being proposed. There's different kinds of categories of bikeways that have different criteria, right? There's a Class 2 bike lane, which is just painted lines on the street. And there's a Class 4 bikeway, which is something that has protected, which includes the raised bike lanes that are in the drawings. And the documents all back and forth about whether they're providing Class 2 striped bike lanes or a Class 4 raised bikeway. And so I don't know how you can approve a document where you haven't decided what you're actually going to provide for bicyclists and say it has no impact on them. Now, there's 2 issues. One is their own reports say a Class 2 painted bike lane is unsafe, poses a safety concern, could result in safety issues. Trucks negotiating the curve will encroach into the bike lane. But if it's a raised bike lane, a Class 4 bikeway, it has to be 7 feet wide according to the published design standards. It doesn't meet those standards. And so I don't know how you can say that there's no impact when you don't even know what's being proposed for bicycles, and whatever is being proposed doesn't meet any published design standards.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Don Ward. I was on the Citizens Advisory Committee. I'm also a member of the Los Feliz neighborhood, the Los Feliz Improvement Association, and the appointee of the Los Feliz Neighborhood Council to the Citizens Advisory Committee. What I have here is all of the letters and support from businesses in Atwater, residents in Atwater, residents in Los Feliz, parent groups, principals from Marshall, principals from all the area schools. We spent a good year and a half collecting petitions and support for option 3, and every single person that signed and wrote a letter knew that a lane was going to be lost. Now, this project is going to be a year of 2 lanes in 1 lane in each direction. And the Bureau of Engineering themselves said that this was manageable, yet somehow this is now a controversy to lose 1 lane. The reason that 1 lane would be safe on that bridge...
Finish your thought.
The issue is that on the bridge itself, the speeds are clocked at 50 miles an hour. Now, if you take away a sidewalk and you put in some kind of sidewalk-looking infrastructure like a raised bike lane or a bollard-protected bike lane, people are going to walk in there because they don't want to cross Hyperion twice. So they're saying that there's going to be a crosswalk across 8 lanes. That actually causes more of a traffic delay than
If I give you more time to give the rest of
Yeah,
time. So I appreciate that. Can we, Sergeant, get that over to us, please? Thank you. Okay, next 3 speakers. Thank you for that. Next 3 speakers, Matthew Mooney, Michael McDonald, Carl Schmidt.
Good afternoon. I'd like to make a point of clarification. Silver Lake Neighborhood Council is against this proposal. It's in the for proposal category. That makes, out of the 3 neighborhood councils, that's 2 that are against this proposal. In the SOMAS technical conclusions, it says for a disabled person, a disabled person would have to travel to the Glen Feliz Glenhurst intersection and backtrack on the other side of the road, adding up to 1,550 feet in travel distance. This is for a disabled person, if you can imagine that. The side of the sidewalk removal is both lower income as well as higher minority population that are much more vulnerable to not graduating on time as well as diabetes due to inactivity. Removing a sidewalk could create barriers to this demographic's access to education as well as barriers to accessing amenities. I personally feel that this is a social justice issue as well as an environmental justice issue, and I ask you to support option 3 and reject this proposal.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Michael McDonald. I'm a licensed architect in California, and as such, I'm required by law to be fully versed in California Accessibility Code and federal ADA guidelines. I would like to direct you to in the appendix of the technical memorandum included in the council file for this item prepared by SOMAS in this exhibit. It shows the distance of an ADA-compliant sidewalk on the south side of Hyperion Bridge, as detailed in Bridge Option 3. This same exhibit shows an increased distance for Option 1 for able-bodied persons of 310 feet. The exhibit goes on to show that the increased distance and time for persons with disabilities is 1,550 feet and 7.4 minutes. California Civil Code requires that individuals, quote, individuals with disabilities have the same right as the general public to the full and free use of streets, highways, sidewalks, and walkways. This increased distance does not meet California's legal requirements for equivalent facilitation for persons with disabilities, and an EIR to comply with CEQA alone cannot be submitted as a hardship to exempt compliance with ADA. As a resident and taxpayer, I support Option 3, and I ask you to direct BOE to further review of required ADA compliance to avoid a costly settlement and/or expensive retrofit that our city cannot afford. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Carl Schmid, and I'm not representing anyone but myself. Maybe I'm old enough, but I'm a strong supporter of Option 1, the one that was presented. It's a retro, and unless you tear the bridge down and build something completely new, you can't have it all. So this option, I believe, was well thought out and is in the public interest.
Thank you, sir. Okay, our next three speakers, Edward Morrissey, Paul Simon, and Luke Klipp. Please come forward. Welcome.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, honorable city committee members. My name is Edward Morrissey. I'm a resident of Atwater Village, also a member of the Atwater Village Neighborhood Council.
Thank you for your service to the NC.
Sure, thank you. And what I'd like to point out are two things. One is the flexibility that's afforded by Option 1. If hopefully in the future of all of us find other modes for transportation, public infrastructure improves, we would have the ability actually under Option 1 to include an additional sidewalk and reduce the traffic lanes to 3. My understanding is that with Option 3, that is not the case. You can't eliminate a sidewalk and add another lane. And the other thing I'd like to also point out is there have been issues brought up with respect to speed, and I think it's critical to note that the Option 1 also includes narrower traffic lanes, which is a demonstrated traffic calming measure, which should reduce traffic speed. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Paul Simon with the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health. I direct our Division of Chronic Disease and Injury Prevention. Earlier, you talked about street arterials. In my world as a physician, we're concerned also about arterials, but they're arteries inside the body, and they're too clogged. And certainly that relates to diet, but it also relates to physical inactivity. And so we're very interested in everything the city can do to promote increased walking and biking. And indeed, we've been partnering with your city for the last 6 years. Yep. And your city's doing great work. We were disappointed to hear about the loss of the walkway on one side, but as I heard from Council Member O'Farrell's staffer, if indeed, well, we would really urge all efforts to create safe pedestrian walkways, both on the north and the south side. And then in addition, I think the traffic calming measure is very important. Just last sentence, what we found in research is if you're hit by a car at 20 miles an hour, you have a 5% chance of dying. At 30 miles an hour, it's a 40% chance of dying, and at 40 miles an hour, it's an 80% chance of dying. So please, traffic calming, very important.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you.
Sure.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Council Members Buscaino and Price. My name is Luke Klipp. I'm the treasurer of the Los Feliz Neighborhood Council. We officially support, absolutely. We officially support Option 3. I want to just direct your attention to the National Environmental Protection Act, which governs the use of federal highway dollars, which includes a provision around environmental justice, which is not contained within CEQA. And specific to this proposed retrofit, it would negatively impact those folks living in the southeastern portion of Atwater Village, southeast of Glendale Boulevard. Census data shows us that this is a community that has less income, has lower education, they're more minority and higher unemployment than the community to the north that would have direct access to the sidewalk. The statement by council members Farrell's office notwithstanding about the proposal, that's a new proposal for an 8-lane crosswalk, which has not yet been studied under CEQA. Notwithstanding, this proposed retrofit would potentially violate the NEPA environmental justice provisions.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next three speakers, Robert Pepe, Deborah Murphy, please come forward, and Jenny Chamberlain. Welcome. Go ahead.
I'm not sure if it came across your desk yet, but I just wanted to point out that Councilman-elect David Ryu has submitted another letter today with the city clerk strongly in favor of option 3, primarily for safety, but also to respect the mobility needs of the communities. I'd like to point out as a parent at Ivanhoe, in just the last week, we have about 500 signatures from the community in support with about 300 comments in addition to this petition. I'd like to submit this.
Thank you.
I'd like to say that myself, without requisite traffic calming, I would not feel safe using the bike lanes with my kids, and we would travel on the sidewalk, even though it is out of the way, to provide a detour for us to use that sidewalk. But there is no traffic calming mentioned in any of the studies for this. It says at most, the SOMA says you can get 1 to 3 miles per hour reduction for every foot they lessen the lane, and this would not be enough to reduce it to designing for the speed limit at 35 miles per hour. And then finally, I just wanted to mention that it contradicts our health and wellness plan that was adopted in March 15th for a balanced multimodal transportation for safe and efficient options for everyone.
Thank you, ma'am. Right.
Okay. Good afternoon. I support and urge you to vote no today. It's a sad comment on the state of the City Council, but the implications of the CD4 Tom LaBonge, one powerful man's ability, who has stated that the Hyperion Bridge is foremost in his mind as being a truck route, has been able to pervert and circumvent and stretch out the design process of the bridge and impose this ill-conceived and unsafe plan on his constituents in Silver Lake and Los Feliz. I certainly would not want to disparage the motivations of the majority of this committee. My question is, does racial insensitivity or animus on the part of city officials play a part in having only one safe sidewalk as planned, as the majority of users are students of Latino and other non-white heritage? Looking at the treatment of these pedestrian communities throughout the city by its workers, including the LAPD, one can only think that this animus comes from long-term city leadership. I draw your attention to Chairman Buscagliano's statement, "I have been committed to finding solutions to fixing our streets and sidewalks." I would hope that his commitment extends to having 2 safe sidewalks on our bridge. Thank you.
Thank you. Ma'am?
Good day. I'm Deborah Murphy. I'm founder and executive director of Los Angeles Walks. I serve as the chair for the last 17 years of the city's Pedestrian Advisory Committee, which voted unanimously at its meeting to support sidewalks on 2 sides and crosswalks to connect Glendale Boulevard and Hyperion Avenue. We need the sidewalks on both sides because people will have to go, as the exhibit you've seen, will have to go in almost a mile out of their way to cross if they do not have crosswalks as well as the sidewalks on both sides. This is a critical issue for the people of Silver Lake where I live. That crosswalk has not been evaluated in the Bureau of Engineering's design proposal. It would require additional environmental review. We want you to wait and delay this decision until Council Member-elect David Ryu takes office so that he can ask for thorough review to support the idea that he has as well of having these 2 sidewalks. This is all about safety, and the design of our road system is a reflection of who we are, as that is the statement from Secretary of Transportation Anthony Fox.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Okay, our next 3 speakers, Sean, yes, we'll grab that. Thank you so much to Michael. Thank you. Sean Meredith, Michelle Black, and Mark Wynn. Who are we missing here? We have
I'm
Mark
Sean,
here?
and
Oh, so Mark is not present? Mark left? Okay. Go ahead, ma'am. Sean, called you first. Go ahead.
hi. I'm the father of a 12-year-old, and I've crossed with her at Hyperion Avenue at Rowena thousands of times going to school. The backup of traffic is not because of the bridge that Tom LeBon described, it's because of Trader Joe's. And basically, the community needs a safe way across. And that intersection is dealing with traffic going 50 to 55 miles an hour coming out into our little neighborhoods. Atwater is considered a walkable neighborhood. It's actually designated that way by the City Council in 2012 as a pedestrian district. And the idea that we would take out a sidewalk is ridiculous. So I'm worried that if we have these kids in South Atwater who are crossing already these 2 lanes of traffic without any help, they're not going to walk, a teenager's not going to walk an extra half mile to reach the north sidewalk. They're going to cross 6 lanes of traffic to get there without having to walk an extra half mile. That's what they're going to do. If you look at the pictures, they already cross 2 lanes now, they'll just cross 6. So I really hope that we consider these students when we do this proposal and not support this option 1 and do something safe with the neighborhood. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon. Michelle Black of Chatton Brown and Karstens on behalf of Angelinos for a Great Hyperion Bridge. Only option 3, with sidewalks on both sides of the bridge, provides safe pedestrian access and CEQA compliance. If option 1 is approved, the mitigated negative declaration fails to disclose and mitigate the project's adverse impacts to circulation and pedestrian safety as required. The new technical memorandum does not fix this problem. On the contrary, it admits that pedestrians will use the bike lane to avoid detours to cross the street, but it fails to discuss the dangers of bike-pedestrian conflicts. CEQA requires consideration of adverse impacts to pedestrian safety. In City of Maywood versus LAUSD, the Court of Appeal found that a similar project design required pedestrian safety analysis in an EIR. Recently, in data not made public, the city has claimed that option 3's removal of a traffic lane will cause a significant traffic impact that would require preparation of an EIR. However, in 2014, the city stated that the 3-lane, 2-sidewalk configuration would operate efficiently until 2040. So what has changed? We urge your support of option 3. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next speaker is Jessica Hugh, Eric Potter, and Gern Throwbridge. Gern is?
Jessica Powell had to leave. Can I read her?
No, I'm sorry. That's not an option here.
Historical Society does not overlap with my comments.
I'm sorry. If I do that for you, I do that for others. Thank you, ma'am. So I'm sorry. Jessica had to leave? Okay. So Eric Potter, Gern, and Paul Berlozheimer. Is Paul here? Thank you.
Gern informed me he was going to the restroom about a minute ago.
Okay. We'll wait for him. How about Dale? Dale Benson? Dale, if you can hear us? Going once? You got 3 seconds to get... I'm just kidding. So we have Eric, Paul, and Dale, who's outside. Does he want to speak? Thank you, sir. Dale, you want to speak? You filled out a speaker card? Yes, I could. Come forward. Thank you. We'll start with Eric. Go ahead. Thank you so much.
I'm Eric Potter. I'm a resident of Silver Lake and Eric Potter, resident of Silver Lake, and I run a music studio across the river in Glassell Park. So I use the bridge every day. I walk the bridge quite often. I use both sides depending, when I'm going to my studio, I use the sidewalk that is proposed to be removed. Last year, the LADOT released a strategic plan entitled Great Streets for Los Angeles with a real emphasis on safety and the Vision Zero aspect of having 0 traffic fatalities. And so I'm wondering, could we hear from the LADOT? Can they weigh in on what they think the safest option is of the 3 options? Especially in light of that new policy. So have we heard from LADOT on what they think is the safest option?
Good afternoon. I'm Paul Berlsheimer. I'm a homeowner in the area. I have been for over 22 years and frequent the businesses in Atwater and Silver Lake. I believe as a forward-thinking society, we need to prioritize public safety over minor changes in automobile traffic flow. The current configuration of Hyperion Bridge, everybody agrees, is dangerous. I believe the current proposal could potentially be just as dangerous or even worse. I also would like to hear from Dan Mitchell at LADOT what they have determined would be the safest of the possible options. I'd like to add that I think that the pedestrian and bicycle counts that were done are irrelevant. The bridge is dangerous now, and pedestrians and cyclists, of course, avoid it. And we cannot ignore the effect that changes in our infrastructure have on people's behavior, and of course people's behavior will change once the bridge has been modified. Likewise, similarly, I believe that the traffic projections out to 2040 are incorrect as they don't take into account current trends of decreasing driving and increases in bicycle and pedestrian and telecommuting. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Hi, my name is Dale Benson. I represent the Caltrans Office of Local Assistance, and Caltrans is neutral on this topic. However, I'd like to I was asked to share a little bit of information regarding the lapsing fund dates and so on. And there's been about $4.4 million encumbered for the design phase, and of that, about $3.8 million has been expended. About $620 million or so. I'm sorry.
About
$620 million are
620,000. You mean? It's okay. 620,000.
Apologize.
It's okay.
620,000 are still
available
on the table, available to be invoiced, and a portion of those funds do lapse in June 30th, 2017. Some of them lapse 2018, and some of them lapse in 2019. So the bulk of them do lapse in 2017, and I think about 120 or so. I don't know the exact number, but there is a portion that do lapse in 18 and 19, and we do have the ability to request extensions for those.
Okay, so as long as you're here, excuse you, I know we have a government official representing Caltrans. So is this time sensitive as far as the dollars that are being spent? Are we going to lose? You're saying how many more extensions can we get if we continue this dialogue?
I don't know how many more extensions you can get.
I mean, we have.
I don't know.
We've only had one extension thus far.
3-year extension.
One 3-year extension that expires in 2017? Okay. Okay, thank you. Gurn here? Please come forward, our last speaker. Thank you so much. You check it. Good afternoon. Oh, what do we have here? Who's this?
This is Bagels.
Bagels. And for the thousands of people listening, explain who Bagels is.
Oh, Bagels is a golden Australian Shepherd, and he's also with me in opposing number 1. My name is Robert Trowbridge.
He has 2 votes.
Yes,
you and Bagels. Okay, got it.
He also feels that we should have the safe alternate number 3.
Gotcha. Go ahead, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is
start his time over, please.
My name is Robert Trowbridge. I'm a resident of Los Angeles, and I'd like to ask Mr. Daniel Mitchell to state which plan the LADOT believes is the safest, which plan will lead to the Vision Zero success. I'm also disheartened in some of the actions and the way that people are looking at things and not fully understanding what is safe and what is proposed with this bicycle lane proposal. I too feel that there will be accidents on the sidewalk that is being, the bike lane that is being considered a potential sidewalk by pedestrians.
Thank you so much. Shirley, can I bring you back up? A couple questions I had just in response to some of the comments that were made from our residents. Explain to me why sidewalk was not included on the other side. Why wasn't that designed that way?
It was considered, however, if we put sidewalks on both sides, it reduces the roadway, and so that would require one lane of traffic to be.
So we would lose a lane
correct
of traffic And that wouldn't
can't-
go along with the traffic count?
Right.
That would hinder the traffic count?
Yes, that will downgrade the level of service of Hyperion Avenue.
And then by downgrading it, would it create another traffic jam in the city of LA?
It could potentially. So at the minimum, the downgrade of level of service, it does require further review as it relates to CEQA.
Okay.
So
And then,
further
so the time-sensitive piece here is the CEQA review?
Right. So because it's a federal project, we have NEPA and we have CEQA, and we cannot continue or start the final design phase until both documents are approved. And so I know the Caltrans
So
representative.
Caltrans has, they said they could do another extension, but you're saying federal,
Well,
federal cannot. Federal.
We had one extension, and that was through federal highways, and probably Dale doesn't know the details of this. We had one extension, and the federal highways actually we've had two extensions. So the federal highways is saying that's already, the second extension is very rare, and that they don't anticipate any further extensions. Now, those were time extensions. What Dale mentioned also, that there are funding extensions, so they're actually two different things. I know it's very confusing, but we were dealing with federal highways on one end, and then we were dealing with Caltrans on the funding side. So.
Okay.
Good.
Crystal clear.
Well,
Go
I
ahead.
did Christine Peters,
Yes,
CD13. Both CD4 and CD13 had heard very clearly from our communities, particularly for us in Atwater Village, that a road diet at this time was not an option. There was a lot of opposition to that. There's a road diet right now on Rowena, which is the street that Hyperion connects to, that has met with less than glowing success in reduction of lanes of travel. So at this time, there was not the desire to see a road diet. And one of the options that had originally been on the table that did not meet with either support from pedestrians or bicyclists was a proposal from Salita Reynolds, the general manager of DOT, for a proposal that actually included 2 8-foot sidewalks and bicycles running with the flow of traffic. And that had no traction, and unfortunately, with no support for that only option that was available with 2 sidewalks and maintaining the 4 lanes of travel, this was the next option that at least got support from many members of our community.
Got it. Well, thank you so much. I want to really commend the work that's been done on, with our colleagues, Mr. O'Farrell, Mr. LaBonge, and his team, and also the community and Bureau of Engineering for the outreach. This has been a project long overdue, but has been taking some substantial time. Here's where I'm coming from. I struggle with the fact that the City of Los Angeles just settled a case that called for sidewalks to be accessible for everyone. We're on the hook for $31 million over the next 30 years. I struggle with the fact that we don't have sidewalks on each side of this bridge. I also respect... Hold on, guys. I also respect the local authority here and our colleagues, Mr. LaBonge and Mr. O'Farrell. They are represented. They represent these communities that are impacted by this bridge. They made obviously put together a citizens advisory committee to get the initial feedback. You have neighborhood councils that are split. You have business residents that are split. We have to find some compromise here. I'm struggling. Hold on, please don't interrupt. I just struggle with the two options that are being weighed in. Mr. Price, what's your take?
Yeah, I too have similar concerns. I certainly am appreciative of the discussion about access and equality, and I think that is important. And I know the Bureau has done a great deal of work in communities as well. But if we're not under the gun with the funding, and that's what I thought the really constraint was, we had to get some approval by a certain time or lose the funding. If we have some additional time, I think it's worth continuing that discussion. And so I would support I would
Can we ask
support a
maybe look-
position that, lets us continue this review a little further.
So-
May I say
Let me just, Mr. Clerk, our options here as a committee, before we send this to council, is thumbs up, thumbs down, or no recommendation. Can you walk
Yes,
us
you
through
can.
walk us through those three options?
Well, you can approve the item, you could decline the item, or you could submit it without recommendation.
Okay. Okay, out of respect, I think both Mr. Price and I have issues and some concerns about the recommendation from what I'm hearing. So, and I understand and respect the sensitivity of time that's before us. So if you're okay with this, Mr. Price, we will send this to council without recommendation. And that would be the order here. And that would be a direction of this committee without objection. We'll send it to council without a recommendation. Thank you so much. Thank you all for being here. We have two speaker cards, general public comments. 1 minute, if I can bring Sid Maksodian and Antonia Ramirez, please come forward.
And Councilmember, now that Councilmember Price is here, would
Let's
you like
reconsider items 1 through 5. Thank you, Michael. Any objection for items 1? Okay, without objection, items 1 through 5 will be approved as amended by those specific items. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, yes, Antonia, please.
Thank you very much.
These are items not on the agenda.
Okay. I realize that the City of Los Angeles has consolidated public works with gang reduction, yet both these subject matters are heavily burdened with their own dynamics and should be separated. On gang reduction, we have a chronic Chango Latino gang epidemic, i.e. Mexican Mafia and the Mara Salvatrucha, and yet nothing is being done to deter these heinous crimes that both wetbacks and gangbangers commit on a daily basis. These Latino Chango gangbangers and wetbacks have a secret agenda to destroy America, starting with the USA military. God bless and protect our United States military and veterans. Hence, CIA, the FBI, LAPD, the City of Los Angeles officials, the judges, attorneys, Homeland Security, Department of Justice, the County of Law Enforcement, and unethical, corrupted, self-serving politicos need to stop illegally pandering to these deranged and diabolical domestic terrorists and enforce the rule of law. Get ICE at full throttle. Deport, deport, deport. No asylum, no amnesty. Again, protect America. God bless America and the United States military.
Sid, please come forward.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Sid.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. As you were discussing it, 2 years, it just brought to me that I almost been on my project for 2 years, as you're aware of. Mr. Buscaino, Mr. Price, look, I need some direction. I did everything that was asked for me. Basically, at the DOT, they put down something there that I couldn't deliver, which nobody can deliver, which is circular driveway. With this case, which came down for $1.4 billion, as you know, it emphasizes sidewalks have to be compliance. And that's what I was working on. The critical thing, you've been there, and you know, at the beginning of that street, it's only 1 foot on one end, and the other end is 2 feet at the 7th. So technically, at a $460,000, street services messed up that construction. And when I was there to do it with private money, till today, District 14 doesn't give a hoot. So I'm in an impasse. I will talk to you further on this, to both of you and Cedillo. Show me some direction and help.
Thank you
All
so
right?
much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no other general speaker cards, we will now adjourn today's Public Works Gain Reduction Committee meeting, special meeting. Thank you so much.